What's up, everybody? I am back with some reaction videos that I want to take care of today, considering that Saturday, when I normally do them, I'm going to be out for the entire evening. So I figured I'll just take care of it right now. So what I'm going to react to is two more videos by the Explainer Comics that I thought would be kind of interesting to check out. But leave a comment below, let me know what you guys think, and we'll just hop right into it. So, every Marvel Power Class explained.
Mutant. In Marvel, being a mutant gives you problems. These are humans born with the X gene, a genetic twist on the 23rd chromosome that changes everything. Their powers are wired in, passed down, and usually show up around puberty. Some can fly, some can read minds, some can melt steel with a glance, and some just grow blue fur. Cyclops, Storm, Magneto, Jean Grey. The original X-Men were just the start. Mutants grew into Marvel's biggest metaphor, just for race, class, sexuality, religion, anything that marked someone as different. And that wasn't subtle. The 1960s comics were already dealing with discrimination, exile, internment camps, and human rights. Only this time it had lasers, but being born a mutant never guaranteed clarity. The powers range from useless to unstoppable, and the rules are full of exceptions. Wolverine had his mutant healing long before he joined the team, but all the metal, that was grafted in later. Then there's the classification mess. Marvel ranks mutants by tiers: Epsilon, Beta, Alpha, and Omega. Sounds official, until fans noticed the list changed every few years. Storm was Omega, then not, then yes again. Iceman made the cut after decades of comic relief, and Franklin Richards declared Omega, then retconned into not even being a mutant. Professor X wiped his memory and kicked him off Krakoa. That's cold. In Marvel, mutant is a membership, a political status that can be revoked when the story shifts. And when the Krakoa Nation rose, it turned mutant identity into full-on statehood, complete with resurrection protocols, island diplomacy, and a mutant Mars. Mutate. Mutates earn their powers the hard way, by surviving something they weren't supposed to. Peter Parker got bit by a genetically altered spider. Bruce Banner took a gamma bomb to the face. The Fantastic Four took a ride through cosmic radiation. Steve Rogers got strapped to a lab chair and turned into Captain America. These are the mutates, people whose biology got flipped by science, accident, or cosmic bad luck. Marvel uses this classification for anyone whose powers show up after birth due to some kind of transformation. It's broad enough to cover Daredevil's radioactive senses, Deadpool's healing factor, and even characters like Cloak and Dagger, who were injected with synthetic drugs during human experimentation. The mutate label is flexible, but it's also messy. Sometimes characters bounce between categories. Deadpool was tortured and mutated in Weapon X, yet constantly shows up in X-Men comics and hangs out with mutants. The Beast was originally a mutant, but he altered his DNA with a serum, giving him his blue-furred form. So, is he both? Mutates don't always get the team perks either. While mutants have Krakoa and their own culture, mutates often end up solo, or treated like experiments. The Hulk gets hunted, the Thing lives with permanent disfigurement. Many mutates never asked for powers, and most of them can't turn it off. Even Reed Richards, one of Marvel's smartest men, and still hasn't found a way to reverse Ben Grimm's condition after decades of comic time. They're just Marvel's reminder that power isn't always clean, and science rarely gives refunds. Once the change happens, there's no going back. Technology. Some Marvel characters don't need a mutation or a cosmic upgrade, they just need a tool set, a brain, and something expensive to plug into. Tech-powered heroes build their edge, and sometimes their entire identity, from machines, gadgets, and armor. Tony Stark set the template. Trapped in a cave with shrapnel in his chest, he built the first Iron Man suit using nothing but scrap metal and a car battery. By the time he upgraded, his armor had onboard AI, supersonic flight, repulsor cannons, environmental seals, and nanotech that responds to thought. Every version is a blueprint of obsession. But Iron Man isn't alone. War Machine runs a heavier, military-grade version. Black Panther's vibranium suit is aligned with kinetic absorption tech. Ghost phases through walls using a quantum-based stealth rig. Vulture reverse-engineered alien scraps into...
I'm glad they used like the correct version of Ghost, not the one with the MCU did.
Flight gear. And the Spider-Man suits, some of them are so advanced.
And the whole thing with mutants, they can get so complicated with ranking them.
advanced. They track vital signs and deploy extra limbs mid-fight. Vision takes it even further. Built by Ultron using the body of the original Human Torch and the brain patterns of Wonder Man, Vision runs on a solar-powered core and manipulate his density. He can become intangible, fly, and fire energy beams from his forehead. Technically, he's artificial, but every action suggests sentience. The tech category also stretches into AI, androids, robotic limbs, and exosuits. Even villains like Dr. Octopus and MODOK fall into it. Some rely fully on machines, others just enhance natural ability with cybernetics or armor. Tech-powered characters often face the same question. Who's really in control, the person or the system? For some, like Stark, it becomes a cycle of upgrades and dependencies. For others, like Vision or Ultron, the tech starts thinking for itself. Mystic. These ones don't tap into science or genetics. They channel energy from other realms, forgotten gods, cursed books, and pocket dimensions that make quantum physics look lazy. This is the power of spellcraft, chaos magic, dark tomes, and eldritch contracts. Doctor Strange is the most recognizable mystic in Marvel, a former surgeon who became Sorcerer Supreme after a car crash wrecked his hands. Trained by the Ancient One and armed with relics like the Eye of Agamotto and Cloak of Levitation, he defends Earth from magical threats by literally redrawing reality through spell circles. But magic in Marvel isn't a single source. Brother Voodoo draws from voodoo spirits. Agatha Harkness uses ancient witchcraft. Even Dracula counts as mystic adjacent. And then there's the Darkhold, a book so powerful it can turn the most disciplined mage into a walking apocalypse. Scarlet Witch is the wild card. First introduced as a mutant with probability-altering powers, she was later reworked into a chaos magic user trained by Agatha. Her spells include mind control, hexes, time warping, and straight-up reality rewriting. She once wiped out almost all mutants on Earth with 3 words: no
Still
more
incredibly
mutants.
hot.
Mystic classification isn't always clean. Some magic users are born with potential, others study it. Some need relics, others don't. Characters like Magic, Wong, and Clea bend rules even further with teleportation, soul blades, or access to demonic planes. And while mutants and tech users often team up or join squads, mystics operate in shadows, libraries, sanctums, or cursed ruins. They answer to no one, except maybe the entities they borrowed power from. Alien. In Marvel, some characters don't need an origin story. They're born with powers because their biology came from somewhere way past Earth. The Skrulls are one of the oldest examples. Shape-shifting aliens from the Andromeda Galaxy who can copy voices, mimic DNA, and impersonate just about anyone. The Kree, native to planet Hala, are stronger, faster, and more durable than humans, with some of them even weaponizing their own DNA through experimentation. Asgardians like Thor and Loki fall into the alien category too. They might look human.
Wait, what was that?
Guardians like Thor and Loki.
Thor. That's an old sword. Sword. That's a old sir. Thor, not Thor. That was weird.
Fall into the alien category too. They might look human, but they age slower, heal faster, and take hits from celestial beings. Their physiology allows them to survive in space, punch through stone, and drink like it's cardio. Then there's the symbiotes. These living alien organisms, starting with Venom, are parasitic, bonding with a host to enhance physical strength, grant shape-shifting abilities, and sometimes generate weapons. The more aggressive the host, the more unstable the bond. Clintar biology is a whole field of study, and when combined with Earth-based hosts, the results are never predictable. The Chitauri, the Brood, the Shi'ar, and even the Accuser Corps all fall under alien-powered entities. Some, like Gladiator of the Shi'ar Empire, operate on belief. The stronger his confidence, the more unstoppable he becomes. Alien power is rarely subtle. Some have entire militaries behind them. Others, like the Phoenix Force, tie into galactic-level destruction. Even Star-Lord has hybrid ancestry that connected him to the Spartax Empire and gave him brief bursts of cosmic-level ability. Alien classification is all about origin. If your DNA starts off-world and comes with perks, you're in. No mutation, no experiment, no spellbook, just raw power baked into your bloodstream from another star system. Cosmic. Their strength comes from the raw fabric of the universe itself, ancient energy, celestial artifacts, or abstract forces that predate time. The term power cosmic first landed with Galactus, a former mortal named Galon, who fused with the sentience of the universe during the collapse of the previous cosmos. That transformation turned him into a universal constant, capable of creating life, erasing planets, and manipulating reality on a scale few can comprehend. His heralds, like the Silver Surfer, receive a portion of that energy. With it, Surfer can absorb and redirect cosmic forces, survive in any environment, travel faster than light, and sense universal disturbances across galaxies. He rides aboard but tracks on a wavelength no Earth science can measure. The elders of the universe, beings like the Collector and the Grandmaster, wield fragments of primordial energy from the Big Bang. They're immortal, obsessive, and each of them taps into cosmic power in their own specialized way. Then there are the cubes. Cosmic cubes like the one that became the shaper of worlds allow their wielders to manipulate matter, energy, and probability. They're artifacts of pure reality warping potential, and in the wrong hands, completely destabilizing. Some cosmic forces aren't even humanoid. Eternity, infinity, death, and oblivion are abstract entities that embody fundamental concepts like space, time, and entropy. The Living Tribunal exists to balance all of it, a three-faced cosmic judge who oversees the multiverse. And then you have the Beyonders, who exist outside universal law entirely, and once killed most of the cosmic hierarchy in New Avengers. Inhumans. Inhumans are the result of Kree experimentation on early humans, designed to be weapons in a war that never came. Their powers lie dormant until they're exposed to Terrigen Mist, a chemical that rewrites their DNA and activates abilities that range from useful to downright bizarre. The royal family leads the charge. Black Bolt speaks, and things explode. Medusa controls her hair with precise muscle control. Karnak sees structural flaws in anything. Walls, plans, people. Gorgon has seismic hooves. Lockjaw's a teleporting bulldog. It's a strange family, but the structure is ancient and deeply ritualistic. Terrigenesis isn't predictable.
Medusa used
Some
to be
Inhumans get devastating powers,
villain for
others
the
get
Fantastic
deformities
Four.
or useless adaptations. Once the mist hits, the result is permanent. No second chances, no do-overs. It's a lottery with DNA as the ticket. Inhumans lived in isolation for most of their history, hiding in cities like Attilan. First in the Himalayas, then on the moon, then briefly in New York. Their politics, traditions, and caste systems set them apart from mutants or aliens. They're engineered to be super. In the 2010s, Marvel pushed the Inhumans hard. With X-Men movie rights locked up at Fox, Inhumans were positioned as the next big thing. New comics, a TV show, Terrigen clouds mutating people on Earth. Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, was introduced as a new generation Inhuman. Then it collapsed. The TV show flopped. Fan interest faded. And eventually Kamala was reworked into a mutant in the MCU. The Terrigen era ended quietly. Inhumans still exist and their lore runs deep, but their push into mainstream Marvel came and went. Eternals. The Eternals were never supposed to be human. They were designed, genetically programmed by the Celestials as part of a long-term experiment on Earth's early population. Created to be nearly immortal, resistant to disease, and biologically perfect, they're powered by cosmic energy and linked to a shared neural system called the Unimind. Ikaris, Circe, Thena, and Druig are part of the core group. Each Eternal can manipulate molecules, project energy, fly, regenerate, and survive indefinitely. Their abilities vary slightly, but their origin is collective. Born in labs, released into ancient civilizations, and ordered to protect humanity without interfering too much. Then come the Deviants. Same creators, different result. Instead of perfection, the Celestials built them with unstable genomes. Each deviant mutates randomly, leading to unpredictable forms and powers. They're considered evolutionary failures, but they're also far more adaptable. Thanos was born to eternal parents, but carries the deviant gene. That mix of engineered godhood and genetic corruption gave him massive durability, long life, and the mindset of a conqueror. He's technically part of both races and fully embraced by neither. The Eternals were originally separate from the rest of Marvel's powered classes, but recent comics pulled them into the mutant narrative during Judgment Day, where the Eternals labeled mutants as excess deviation, a threat to correct. That put them in direct conflict with Krakoa and reignited debates about who gets to define evolution. They've lived on Earth, the Moon, Titan, and Uranus. They've joined the Avengers, fought among themselves, and defied their own programming. Despite their power, their stories are built on control, identity, and the pressure of a mission they never asked for. So after all that, engineered gods, cosmic storms, magical chaos, and spider bites gone wrong, which power class actually wins when the universe goes off?
Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think, like, which class is my personal favorite, and it has to be it's like a tie between the mutate and the mystic stuff, because I do like the supernatural stuff in comics in general. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the Star Wars. Every woke Star Wars comic hated by fans explained. And leave a comment below. Let me know which is your favorite power class system in Marvel.
High Republic. This was supposed to be the era that was supposed to save Star Wars comics, but then lost the plot. Lucasfilm rolled out the High Republic like it was launching a new cinematic universe, brand new Jedi, brand new timeline, coordinated comics, novels, animation plans, even a launch livestream. For a second, it looked like Star Wars was about to reinvent itself for a new generation. But instead of a galactic rebirth, readers got a bloated, lore-heavy experiment that never fully connected. The timeline was set 200 years before The Phantom Menace, long before the Skywalkers, the Empire, or the Clone Wars. The Jedi were in their prime. Peace ruled the galaxy, which meant for many readers there was no real tension. The central villains, the Nihil and the Drengir, were introduced as chaotic marauders and carnivorous plant monsters, respectively. Neither stuck the landing. Fans found them visually bizarre, underwritten, or just flat-out unthreatening. But the real issue was the pacing. The main comic series, written by K. Van Scott, often spent entire issues bouncing between Jedi debates and vague Force visions while galaxy-threatening events were buried in exposition. Major characters like Keeve, Trennis, and Skier had potential, but were often lost under layers of dialogue or constantly shifting crossovers. Readers had to juggle events from novels, junior books, and multiple comic lines just to follow the plot. And then came Phase 2, a confusing time jump 150 years earlier. Fans who had finally adjusted were thrown back again into another cast, another crisis, and a new set of Jedi that still weren't the ones people had grown up with. Engagement dropped, sales slipped. Even major YouTubers who praised the launch stopped covering it consistently. Lucasfilm had promised the next great Star Wars epic. What it delivered was a timeline with ambition and lore, but not enough emotional anchors to keep comic fans invested. Dr. Aphra. When Dr. Aphra...
You see, that's why I struggle to find like Star Wars comics that I can really get into, because Disney, after acquiring Star Wars, they kind of fumble the bag in a lot of ways, and just I don't know. It's like you got all these novels to mine from or adapt, but Disney want to have their own thing. They don't want to rely on things of the Lucas era, even though you're Lucasfilm. But yeah, that's why it's only, on my channel, I only reviewed a couple of Star Wars comics so far, and those are the ones that I thought was the most interesting of reads. Because I did one for Obi-Wan Kenobi, like a Qui-Gon Jinn mini, and a Yoda story. But not to say there won't be any future Star Wars comics, because I really do want to cover more Star Wars. But unless you guys, recommend it and want me to check it out, I'm going to have to be very mindful of which ones I want to cover, because in all actuality, not all of them are good, because like you mentioned, a lot of them get bogged down in exposition and very wordy, no real stakes. You just getting lost in the weeds and you get bored.
First showed up in Darth Vader, 2015, fans were sold. She was sharp, unpredictable, carried murderous droids, and somehow survived being on Vader's payroll. So when she got her own solo title, expectations were high. She was supposed to be Star Wars' breakout anti-hero, a chaotic force in the gray area between Jedi and Sith. Instead, the comic stretched itself across years, reboots, and personality overhauls that left readers wondering what they were still sticking around for. The original run by Kieran Gillen kicked things off strong. Aphra schemed, betrayed, double-crossed, all while dodging bounty hunters, Jedi artifacts, and her own ex. But as the series progressed and relaunched, the tone began to wobble. The relaunch in 2020 under Alyssa Wong kept her pansexual identity front and center, but drifted into overwritten inner monologues, vague forced relic arcs, and dialogue that often felt like someone narrating their own Tumblr blog in real time. By 2022, critics were still praising the diversity, but fans were less generous. Aphra stopped evolving and started circling. She'd bounce between regretful loner, flirty rogue, reckless genius, and emotionally unavailable disaster, all in one issue. That kind of chaos works in bursts, but over dozens of issues, it wore thin. The structure didn't help either. Each arc introduced ancient tech or a mystical MacGuffin with galaxy-ending potential, but none of it stuck. The stakes reset every few months, and the supporting cast rotated so often, emotional payoffs never landed. The longer it went, the more the series felt like it was trying to be clever instead of compelling.
Yeah, it's funny. I really like Star Wars Visions, mainly because it's an animated show that does what, well, Disney Star Wars has done probably the best to this day, as you see from Tales of the Jedi. Tells short, concise, weighty stories in just probably like 15 minutes. And it even when they don't have, like with Star Wars Visions, have zero to do with like the main characters from the original trilogy at all, it was so compelling. And putting aside the art for a second, it just like that first episode of Visions where you just got this, like a samurai-esque, Japanese art style thing. This Ronin, who, spoiler alert, turns out to be like a rogue Sith user who fighting other Sith. Doesn't got that much words, but you are very enthralled in the story. Here with Aphra, who, because I remember when she was first introduced, on paper seems like a compelling character. She looks good in design and everything like that. And of course, I was half expecting him to talk about, because when she was first introduced, she was supposed to be like a lesbian or something like that. But now, according to him, because I really haven't been keeping up with Aphra. But last time, remember, it's supposed to be some kind of, she was hanging up with Vader, and then you find out she was a lesbian, which is all well and good. But now she's a pansexual. Don't know when that happened, but this is what happens when we try to force fanfic into stories that's meant for not just for kids, but just for men or young boys who got into this stuff. Not saying girls can get into it, but they're not the target audience. They just happen to, happen along the way. But now you got, all this forced diversity and get us off all these different sexual things. It's like, do we really need to care about, like, who? She's trying to. She's written like she's supposed to be like the female Han Solo. That's what you kind of get that vibe from. I'm not saying that Han Solo didn't have his way with girls. He's pretty much, like that's what he pretty much inspires, characters like Star-Lord. Where he's just like a charming rogue, and he's trying to apply that in a female skin, but I don't know, it's just you're tacking on too much crap to this character. Now she's not very, very appealing. You could have still had made it work with her. She's not terrible, unlike most other characters coming from Disney Star Wars, but it's just you dropped the ball somewhere along the way, and you gotta make a layered character, which I think they started out with this girl, but then they started adding a lot of this woke crap to her. It's like, yeah, sure, have her like be interested in girls and but don't let that be the centerpiece. You know what I mean? And give her consistent stories, simple. Like I brought up, like, Star Wars Visions, very simple stories. They ain't getting bogged down with side quest bullcrap. You can do it. Y'all done it before. It's weird.
Star Wars Princess Leia. When Marvel got the Star Wars license back in 2015, they launched with a bang. An all-new Princess Leia miniseries set right after the Death Star blew. It was supposed to show Leia processing Alderaan's destruction and stepping into leadership. But 5 issues later, fans weren't talking about emotional depth. They were asking why the book felt so robotic. The series, written by Mark Waid and drawn by Terry Dodson, kicked off with Leia trying to honor her people by tracking down scattered survivors of Alderaan. It had promise, a royal on a rescue mission. But from the start, the dialogue clashed with the stakes. Leia delivered her lines like a...
Does this kind of give off like a old style James Bond Connery type of art cover? Because I immediately start thinking about, James Bond.
Government memo in space. Her grief never landed. Her passion felt muted. And the dynamic with her sidekick, Yvonne, didn't build into anything memorable. The art was polished but strange. Dodson's style gave Leia a kind of permanent smirk, even in scenes that called for vulnerability. Readers kept pointing out how scenes meant to be tense or tragic looked like panels from a fashion magazine. The emotional disconnect grew with every page. Fans were also confused by the book's tone. One issue has Leia trading blaster fire in dresses, another has her floating through character development that doesn't match anything in the original trilogy. There's no real arc, and just a checklist of things Leia should care about, without giving her time to actually feel anything. She jumps from action to action without ever slowing down. Sales were strong at launch, but dipped sharply by the 3rd issue.
That's a shame.
Critics gave it polite praise. Fans were...
Because this is Princess Leia, one of the most important female characters in pop culture history. Probably like really up there, probably in the top 3, right with like Sarah Connor in terms of the most important. I think Wonder Woman, Princess Leia, and Sarah Connor is, and like Ellen Ripley is the 4 main female characters in pop culture history that stood the test of time and is revered by both men and women around the world. So the fact that it breaks your heart, the fact that they dropped the ball with her like this, is very disrespectful. I don't know, it's like, hearing this, it's a crying shame, because you want weight. Because, yeah, it seems like a good idea. Written a comic, like a story about her trying to find the what remained of her Alderaanian people who wasn't on the planet when it was destroyed, and try to gather them all together. That is a solid, premise. So why are you making her do just facile model poses and like don't give her any kind of emotional weight, and like I don't know, like you don't want to see, because I'm starting to think like Hollywood or people behind the writer's room are too scared. Most of them, not all, but most of them are too scared to make a woman vulnerable, because they don't want to look misogynistic by making the female lead weak. But that's the whole point of a hero's journey. They have to have that vulnerability. So when eventually when they overcome, it's all the more triumphant. So you need that part.
Blunt. It felt like a rushed attempt to spotlight Leia without taking the time to understand what made her iconic. In the end, the series didn't add to her legacy. It just left readers flipping through, hoping for something with more weight. Star Wars Sana Starros. When Marvel gave Sana Starros her own solo series in 2023, the reaction was confusion. This was a character introduced back in 2015 as part of a bait and switch where she claimed to be Han Solo's wife. That fake out gave her some buzz, but after years of bouncing around the background in various titles, she suddenly got top billing. No build-up, no big arc. Just 5 issues of a character struggling to justify her own spotlight. The comic focused on Sana reuniting with her dysfunctional family, including her cousin and grandmother, while getting wrapped up in a criminal mess involving a heist gone wrong. That setup could have worked if it had any tension. Instead, the story meandered. There was no urgency, no real hook to pull readers in. Most of the plot felt like filler, and the action sequences had no stakes. Reviews quickly pointed out the dialogue as a major issue. Characters explained everything out loud. Conversations dragged. Sana herself never established a clear voice. One moment confident, the next unsure, then suddenly commanding again. The tone swerved between dramatic family soap opera and shallow space crime adventure. The art by Per Perez was clean but did little to elevate the scenes. It was just flat. Panels that should have popped with energy
It
were
is good
stiff,
art, I give
and
it
big
that.
emotional beats came and went without impact. The book didn't chart high, and it wrapped after one arc with no continuation announced. Most fans barely noticed it ended. Star Wars: Galaxy's Edge. This one was
Oh,
Marvel's
God,
tie
they
to
actually-
Disney's $1
oh,
billion
my-
Star Wars theme park.
Oh my god, they did not. They actually made a comic called Galaxy's Edge. How far up your own ass are you? Oh my god, that is just shameless. That's shameless. Oh my goodness.
And it read exactly like what it was, a marketing pitch in comic form. Every panel screamed synergy. Every location felt like a branded map, and fans knew exactly what they were being sold. The 5-issue mini was centered around Doc Ondar, the shady antiques dealer featured in the Galaxy's Edge Park. He sent various characters on quests to retrieve relics for his collection, which just so happened to match the same ones you could find in Disney's gift shops. One story featured Greedo, another had Han and Chewie. Boba Fett made a quick appearance, but the cameos had zero weight. They were pulled in and out like action figures. No setup, no payoff, no connection to anything meaningful in canon. Writers Ethan Sachs and Will Sliney did what they could with the assignment, but the whole thing was boxed in. The stakes were non-existent. The dialogue was overloaded with name drops from the theme park. Black Spire Outpost, Onaka Transport Solutions, Ronto Roasters. If you'd never been to the park, it sounded like gibberish. If you had, it just reminded you that you'd already overpaid for blue milk. Critics gave it polite nods for world building. Readers didn't care. Most fans skipped it entirely or stopped after issue 1. Lando, Double or Nothing. Marvel greenlit. Lando, Double or Nothing to ride the hype of Solo, a Star Wars story.
How much they have to pay Childish Gambino for his likeness?
With Donald Glover's Lando stealing scenes on screen, the idea was to give that version of the character his own comic adventure. Cool idea, until readers opened the first issue and realized the vibe was all surface, no spark. The 5-issue mini had Lando escorting a droid revolutionist into Imperial-controlled space. Sounds decent, but instead of high-stakes espionage or smooth-talking gambits, the plot drifted between aimless conversations and clunky action beats. The mission never felt urgent. The antagonist had no real presence. And by the final issue, the whole thing wrapped up like a forgotten side quest with barely any impact. Writer Rodney Barnes leaned hard into Lando's charisma, which should have worked, but nearly every line of dialogue sounded like an audition reel. Lando spoke in constant self-praise. At one point, he literally narrates how good he looks while dodging gunfire. After 3 pages, it stops being fun and starts reading like a parody of the character's confidence. The art by Paolo Villanelli had style, especially in the ships and settings, but the visual energy couldn't save scenes where the plot stood still. Whole issues passed without anything meaningful happening. No big twist. No real emotional arc. Lando starts the comic cool and ends cool. No change, no risk, no payoff. Critics gave the series lukewarm reviews, pointing to the flashy dialogue and thin story. Fans were less forgiving. Online forums called it empty fan service and forgettable. It never cracked strong sales numbers and no follow-up was announced. Star Wars Bounty Hunters Tonga Arc. When Marvel launched Star Wars Bounty Hunters, it was pitched as a...
You know, it's something like I noticed through the list Splendor Comics has. You notice how nearly all of the comics we've seen so far, the vast majority of them are female led and female of color on top of that. Now, maybe sometime by next year we'll be starting to see less of that, because it's like, you know, it's not even just with Star Wars, it's just in most comics nowadays, where you just see a lot of female, not that it's like a bad thing, but it's just like there's no balance to it. It's like we got a mandate, we need to have, you know, a female of color And if you can throw in a female of color who also is pansexual, or this who is a lesbian or bisexual, that'd be great. And shove it in there. We gotta like just cram it in there, make them front and center. And it's like, as much as like I don't care for Afra, I can see that there was an original idea with this character that kind of got lost in the weeds. Everything else just seems so like forced, no pun intended. And it's just like, God, you gotta mix it up a bit, you know. And not just mix it up a bit, like, oh, I'm not saying like, oh, you just put a guy in it and it'll work. No, I'm just saying like, whether it's a guy or a girl, you gotta have some stakes, like a character arc. Don't let it be bogged down by that person's sexuality or their skin color. Just make a legit, you have an idea and follow through with it.
Hard-edged title, a place for guns for hire, double crosses, and everything too brutal for the mainline Star Wars books, and for a while it delivered. The early arcs focused on Valance, a cyborg ex-Imperial with a chip on his shoulder and a kill list to match. But in 2021, the spotlight shifted, and fans started checking out. Enter Tonga, a former rebel turned bounty hunter. Her arc was meant to evolve the series, expand representation, and give readers a new leader to rally behind. Instead, the pacing collapsed, the tone softened, and the bounty hunters turned into a team-building exercise. Tonga's crew, a diverse group of mostly original characters, had potential, but their introduction felt forced. Each new member got a dramatic entrance, a quick backstory, and then barely anything to do. The dialogue got bogged down in exposition, with long stretches of characters explaining their motivations rather than showing them. Action scenes still happened, but the stakes never felt sharp. Blaster fights came and went without consequences. By mid-2022, fan forums started calling out the tonal shift. What used to feel like Star Wars, The Mandalorian meets Dirty Dozen, had started reading like Guardians of the Galaxy, Team Orientation Week. The Tonga storyline dragged across multiple issues with no real payoff. Even Valance, once the heart of the series, got sidelined into filler arcs and awkward cameos. Critics stayed quiet. Most outlets barely covered the later issues. The book kept publishing, but pull list interest faded. Star Wars Women of the Galaxy. When it dropped, the comic was billed as a celebration of Star Wars' most iconic female characters, from Leia and Rey to Ahsoka, Ventress, and Mon Mothma. The hardcover featured striking portraits by over a dozen artists.
And this is another thing. Why you need to make this big showy thing out of it, like, hey ladies, we got all these female representation. Hey, we're on your team. Hey, it's like, it seems so like, I don't even know what the word would be for this. It just seems so like pandery. That is a good word. It seems so pandery. That's why woke is put into a negative context. When you got things like this is an example right here why people use woke in such a negative context. Because, people by and large are sick of being pandered to. It's like, do you really need to make a whole comic saying like women of the galaxy? You just have them. Just let them just be characters. Why you gotta prop them up? Just like, we got the women of the galaxy. You will not do this with like a comic called Men of the Galaxy. It's just like, why you need to do all that stuff? But like Han Solo, not because he's like a dude, because he has charm and he's like a rebellious bad boy and like kind of like a very not, I won't say Wild West attitude, but you know what I mean. This, that lovable rogue. He's complex. He's chaotic good kind of situation where he comes in at the clutch at the end to help people, because despite being a smuggler, he's a smuggler who has like morals. But we got great female characters in Star Wars, like Asajj Ventress, like Princess Leia, like Ahsoka. But you don't need to make a big show out of it just to pat yourself on the back. Just like, you're trying to appeal to women. Women will come as long as you have like just cool characters with layers to their story. Yeah, like most people by and large like Ahsoka already. You don't need to make a big thing like, hey kids, hey little girls, we got Ahsoka here. It's like, look our Rey. It's like it's make you want to throw up in your mouth the way they pander so hard. And that's why you got like things like Acolyte being shoved down the waste disposal and incinerated, because it's just so grueling and just ugh.
Each paired with a short write-up by Amy Ratcliffe. Visually, gorgeous, structurally, more of an illustrated pamphlet than an actual narrative. The book contains over 70 character entries. Each one spans about a page and includes a short bio, a few traits, and some inspirational phrasing. That's it. There are no storylines, no arcs, and no conflict. It reads like it was designed for middle school library shelves. Safe, sanitized, and formatted like a Star Wars-themed LinkedIn profile. Fans looking for new insights or deep dives into these women's impact on the galaxy left empty-handed. The writing is clean and earnest, but repetition creeps in fast. Every entry focuses on resilience, leadership, or compassion, with little variety in tone. There's no grit, no internal flaws, no real exploration of what made these characters unique beyond their gender and loyalty. Even morally complex figures like Ventress or Aurra Sing get flattened into footnotes. Online reactions were split. Some praised the representation and the focus on inclusivity. Others pointed out how characters like Kira, Hera Syndulla, or Jyn Erso were reduced to hollow descriptions. For many fans, the book felt like an art collection glued to a press release. The beautiful illustrations by artists like Jen Bartel and Sarah Alfaghi were the main draw, and even those got more traction on social media than in the book itself. And that's it. These are the comics that we got. But now to you, which comic lost you the fast?
Oh my god, this is why I struggle to find good Star Wars comics to read. And I understand why people got Star Wars fatigue for crap like this. If they even are willing to do this kind of crap in the comics, the TV shows and by extension the movies are deeply in trouble. And it's a miracle that I've found some gems from Disney Star Wars as of late. Like Skeleton Crew wasn't really all that bad. John Watts knew the assignment and has respect for the source material and honor that. So that way, Skeleton Crew, even though I kind of wish more people would get, more into it, but because they got hit with so much crap from Disney Star Wars with the pandering and the wokeness shoved down their throats. So when little things that actually are good, people are emotionally blunted at this point where it's like they altogether just not want to deal with Star Wars in any capacity. Won't even give certain things a chance anymore. I got a friend of mine who just completely done with Star Wars altogether, and I can't even blame him. I can't really debate him why he should check certain things out. There are certain things in Disney Star Wars I actually thought was solid, like Skeleton Crew, and when it came out, I tell him, you guys gotta check this out. This is actually pretty solid, true Star Wars stuff. But he just like completely checked out, and I can't really blame him. I can't. It's like it's hard for me to argue that Disney Star Wars has done some serious damage. Not that it can't flip it, but they got to be consistent with the quality, and not pander. But anyway, what you guys think? which one of these comics, Star Wars comics, that you read and give your opinion. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit. Take care.